This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It is time to get ready for week number 8 in the NFL, and not the biggest slate as far as having like thriller games or anything, but still some pretty solid ones out there for sure. Today we're going to break down those games, talking the Bengals versus the Eagles. We'll talk some Colts versus Texans because the AFC South is still pretty intriguing. And then the Sunday Night Football game is the Cowboys and the Niners, a classic matchup there. We're talking to Meghan Payton today, picking her brain onto those matchups and her best bets for week number 8. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research. Joined here as mentioned by Meghan Payton. You can find her on X at Meghan Payton 7. Find her work over on FanDuel TV, where she is live from noon to 2 Eastern every weekday. Meghan, happy week 8. How you doing today?
Happy week 8, Jim. I'm good. It's good to be here. I know there's no buys this week, right? So it's like maybe we don't have the best. I'm pretty sure we might not have the best slate like we did last week, but there's a lot of games this weekend. There's some classic rivalries, like you mentioned, Cowboys, Niners. So it'll be fun to dive into.
Yeah, it's like I need the buys because I need to like focus more, and they're taking that away from me. So like I'm a little bit annoyed, frankly, that there are no buys this week.
I'm kind of the same with you. Like it's the same deal as like, I think we've discussed this before. Doubleheader Monday Night Football, not a fan at all. I need individual. This is my one game I'm focusing on, unless we're just getting Scott Hansen to come, which I think he actually did join like one of the Manning casts. Anyway, I need focus.
Okay. I could get down for that. That'd be a lot of fun for sure. No, not a lot of red zone action when it's Chargers versus Cardinals, but hey, more Scott Hansen, never a bad thing. I will not complain about that by any means. As mentioned for today, we're going to talk about some trades that have gone down the NFL. Weird. Trades are allowed to happen in the NFL. That's kind of crazy. We'll talk about those, talk about the implications of those in the betting markets. We'll talk about some games this week: Eagles, Bengals, Colts, Texans, Cowboys, Niners, and then get Megan's best bets for week number 8. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Our breakdown of college football week 9 with Riley Thomas is already up, breaking down his best bets for this week across a very fun college football week number 9 slate. We also tomorrow will talk some NFL player props with Austin Swaim of FanDuel Research. You get that one as it is posted. Search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. And of course, these shows also live on YouTube. Our DFS show already posted on the YouTube page as well, with myself and Brandon Gadula breaking down the top DFS plays for week number 8. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out live the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as knowledgeable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Restrictions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Arizona, Colorado, DC, Iowa, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chat Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Meghan, I do want to start things off here by talking about some trades, because we actually have seen some pretty big trades over the past 10 days. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins going to Kansas City, Amari Cooper to the Bills. We've got Devontae Adams in New York, and then the Seahawks making a trade for a linebacker too with the Tennessee Titans, and they need all the help defensively they can get. So which team to you, Meghan, got the biggest boost from the trades we've seen here in the past week and a half?
Amari Cooper to the Bills, 100% is the biggest impact. And it was funny because the Davante Adams thing happens, and then it's like right after Amari Cooper.
Right.
And I remember saying this after I said, Amari Cooper is going to have a bigger impact for the Bills than Davante Adams will for the Jets. And I believe it because the Bills are just in a place where like they're better offensively. They've got more weapons. And it was the big knock on this Buffalo team was they don't have a wide receiver one, since Stephon Diggs left. But it's funny to me, Jim, how quickly the narrative changes on a team. So it felt like everyone was expecting Buffalo to be in this almost like rebuild year, if we will, because they're getting rid of Stephon Diggs. And then it's like, wait, they're kind of good. Yeah. AFC East kind of sucks. Like, we're not seeing the performance from the Jets that we expected. The Dolphins, obviously, when they lost Tua, then their season felt like it was kind of dwindling down. The Patriots aren't contenders. So I love this move by not only Sean McDermott, but what Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, is going to do. Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners. Here's the craziest thing, Jim. We saw him last week. Literally doesn't know the playbook. He's just like running and getting touchdown. So imagine this week when he actually knows the routes, knows the plays. I think it's going to be, when we look back at this 2024 season, 2025 season, it's going to be the most impactful trade that we saw.
Well, I did bet the Bills -3, so I hope you're right, and I hope it's specific to this week because Amari looked, and that's with no bump up for Cooper because, like, I do tend to believe it takes a bit for receivers to get acclimated, but like long term, that's a pretty big boon for the Bills. They're ranked third in the power rankings I use primarily, and they're ranked second in my secondary power rankings. So like they're a good team already. Then you add a guy who can actually like generate separation, who is not Khalil Shakir. I feel like it's kind of hard not to love that move for the Bills because he kind of was exactly what they needed. And he's not like, full respect to DeAndre Hopkins and full respect to Davante Adams. I feel like he is kind of like the exact kind of receiver the Bills needed.
Exactly. Well, and he's coming off his best season last year. And then he's in this situation in Cleveland. Obviously, prior to the Deshaun Watson injury, things weren't going good at the quarterback position and the connection on offense. And now it feels like it's a win-win, maybe not for Cleveland, but it's a win-win for Amari Cooper, for Josh Allen, and for the Buffalo Bills. And also a winner is Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. That's what it doesn't change the locker room negatively. So one of the things, obviously, going and getting Davante Adams for the Jets is, well, all right, how does this impact Garrett Wilson? Maybe he says the right things to the media, but you feel a little bit like, hey, like I was supposed to be that number one guy. I don't think Keon Coleman or Khalil Shakir were like, hey, I thought I was the number one guy. Right. And I think it just ultimately boosts the morale of the locker room, which can, in fact, help everyone around it.
Bills 11-1 to win it all. I think that's kind of interesting. I'll just put that out there as well. I think that we talked about that a bit on Tuesday. I think that's at least intriguing to me is what I would say. Okay, let's talk about some week 8 games. Megan, starting things off with, I think, the best game on the slate, my favorite game on the slate. That is the Eagles at the Bengals right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. The Bengals favored by 2.5. That was 1.5 yesterday, so some movement towards the Bengals here. Total in this game is 47.5. And the Bengals have gotten off to a bit of a roll here, beating up on some bad teams. But now facing the Eagles, who looked good in the second half, specifically last week. So can the Bengals snag another win here, or do the Eagles come out on top?
You know why betting's good, Jim, is because you don't have to pick the winner in order to bet the game. And this is one of the games this week that I'll bet it many different directions, but it's not going to be spread and it's not going to be money line. I keep going back and forth. These two teams just not at all what we expected them to be. There are some player props really intriguing in this one. If the Eagles are going to win, it's going to be on the ground with Saquon Barkley. Barkley's had a massive impact for them immediately. So I'm looking at 100+ yards from scrimmage. So, receiving and rushing yards combined, and was actually surprised. Last I saw it was at even money for 100+, which is really, really good. If it's still, is it about that still?
Plus 105 right now.
Even better. He's gone over this in 5 of the last 6 games, and the Eagles are absolutely relying on that run game. They ran nearly 70% of their snaps last week against the Giants. Saquon got a touchdown. And now they face a Bengals run defense that is allowing everyone to run all over them. This is a Saquon Barkley game. And what I like about it, too, is even if the Bengals are like, we've got to find a way to, shut down Barkley. He's the kind of guy that can get a slant catch and then just take off for 50 yards. So that's why in this case, I do like both the rushing and receiving combined, because the Eagles are going to try many different ways to utilize him against a weak Bengals run defense.
Yeah, they've been a little bit better since BJ Hill came back, but it's still Saquon Barkley. And like, you think about the teams they faced in that time, they faced a Browns offensive line that was super banged up. They faced the Giants, and Andrew Thomas got hurt mid-game. So I don't want to put too much stock in those splits for the Bengals. And I do still think they're a team we can run on despite those. And Sheldon Rankins too, getting back in there. It's a big addition for them, but still a defense they can run on for sure. You mentioned the getting the rushing plus receiving. I do like that angle for Saquon as well. 100 plus rushing yards or yards from scrimmage for Saquon, plus 105. Did want to, pick your brain on one thing here, because you talked about, hey, we don't have to bet the side or total. I have not bet the side bet the side in this game. I took an alt total. I took the alt total, actually, specifically. Okay. And the thought process here was, and this is kind of something I've been thinking about for a bit, where because of the kickoff changes, we've seen, I think it's a situation where touchdowns beget touchdowns. Like, you score a touchdown, you get better field position after the kickoff for the opposing team, and it can kind of lead this cascading effect where you can see a lot of scoring kind of pile up together. So when I look at the alternate total points in this game, it's at 47.5 for the baseline number. I may or may not take it over 59.5. Over 59.5 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, plus 370. I've got this right around 47.8. So like, it's not far off of the total, but again, it's kind of like it's a high total of the tight spread, where if we've got both teams foot on the gas for all four quarters, I think we could see that cascade effect, and we call it a shootout, but like, it's a cascading effect where you get the better field position after a score. And that's why I took the alt over 59.5 plus 370. Is that a bridge too far for you? Is that number too high? Or how do you feel about that one?
I'm not going to argue you off that at all. I absolutely could see this game being one of those just, as we say, shootout. Everyone's just going everywhere. And it actually goes pretty well with another bet that I'm looking at. So I'll endorse your alt line total. As long as you can endorse my Joe Burrow over his completions of 23.5. So if we're going to see a lot of points in this game, it'll be because of Saquon for the Eagles, and it's going to be because of Joe Burrow and him getting the ball down the field. He's top 5 in like every passing stat this year. He's top 5 in completion percentage. And that's going to be the key here, I think, against an Eagles secondary that gives up their dead last DVOA against wide receiver ones. And good thing for the Bengals is they've got 2 really solid wide receivers. So I could see this being a game where, yes, there's a lot of points. Yes, Saquon's running all over the place, but Joe Burrow is throwing in nearly every snap.
All right, I'm in. You talked me into that one as well. Joe Burrow over 23.5 completions, minus 104. Saquon Barkley, 100 plus yards in scrimmage is plus 105 as well. Second game is kind of a sneaky fun one because it's an AFC South matchup. And I think the reason I wanted to discuss this one is because the AFC South looks settled, like the Texans, pretty heavy favorites to win this one, but the Colts still lurking there, and they might get Jonathan Taylor back this week. So let's talk about this one. Texans versus Colts. The Texans favored by 5.5 in this one. Total is 45.5, and the Texans looked uneven again last week. CJ Stroud constantly under pressure. Just the offensive line has not really improved as much as I kind of was hoping they would this year. So can the Texans bounce back and cover in this one, or do the Colts keep things close?
I'm back in the Texans, Jim. And I felt like I needed to message you on Sunday when our boy Tank put up a whopping 0 piece in fantasy. And it's like heartbreak after heartbreak sometimes with this Texans team. However, I'm not selling my stock yet completely on Houston. CJ Stroud looked a little bit uncomfortable, which I don't love to see, but you have to remember, playing a really good Packers. If there's 2 teams I love in the NFL, it's the Texans and the Packers. Yeah. And I do think Houston has the capabilities to bounce back. And now they face a divisional team, but a divisional team that they've beat. They beat in week 1 in Indy. So now you're back at home. This is still a solid defense. You got Joe Mixon, who did go off. And I'm hoping that CJ Stroud finds a way to connect with Tank Dell. I am going to be looking, and I don't think props are up yet just for this game, but am I crazy? Is this like, what do they say? The definition of like insanity is doing the same thing multiple times, expecting different results. I'm going to find a way to back Tank Dell in this game. And I am backing Houston to cover in a what feels like not must win, but a bounce back spot.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of the right line of thinking on this Texans team. And I think that if I were to give the case in favor of your Tank Dell bounce back, because of course I would, I got to validate. It's feed into the toxicity of loving Tank Dell here. But like what I would say is they're back at home. They're playing indoors. I assume the roof had an issue before they couldn't close it, but I assume the roof can close once again. So I'm counting it as being an indoor game. And they're facing a Colts defense that Gus Bradley said after the week 1 game, yeah, we messed up. We tried too hard to stop the receivers, and Joe Mixon busted on us for 178 yards. I don't think they'll do that again. So I think that that's kind of the case in favor of backing Tank Dell, maybe backing Stephon Diggs. I tend to view Diggs as being a bit overrated in prop markets personally. So I don't get to, that's probably why I wind up on Dell so often, so I can't get to Diggs. But I think that's the point in favor is they're back at home, back indoors, and facing a defense that you kind of know what a game plan for with Gus Bradley. You kind of know what you're going to get for better or for worse. So I think that that's a case to go back to this Texans passing game is that it's a much different context, much different situation than what they had last week.
It's completely different. And there are quarterbacks that just play better inside, play better at home. And I think Geno Smith, Jared Goff are 2 really good examples of that. And CJ Stroud, though with our limited knowledge of him when it comes to indoor play, still seems to be a factor. And we've seen some insane CJ Stroud games in his short career so far. We've seen that quick release. We've seen his ability to go through those progressions and find guys down deep like Tank Dell and maybe Stephon Diggs. And they really do have a balanced offense, even with guys like Nico out. There are still so many ways to beat defenses. And as you mentioned with Gus Bradley, they know how to beat this team. This is sometimes when you look at divisional games, it's I'd stay away from them because they know them so well. In this case, I actually think it benefits Houston knowing Indy so well.
Yeah, and they've done very well against them. Remember that effectively a playoff game last year, and that one that's where Nico Collins had an 80-yard touchdown the first play of the game or whatever it was. That was pretty sick. Hopefully we can get our guy to Tank Dell to do that this time around. So Megan is on the Texans -5.5, -106 as they take on the Colts in an AFC South battle. Let's finish up here by talking about the Sunday Night Football game. It is the Cowboys and the Niners right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Niners favored by 4.5. Total in this game is 45.5, and Niners are struggling. Need a win. No Brandon Ayuk here. I kind of assumed Debo would sit, but now Kyle Shanahan said he hopes to have him on Sunday. I don't know how. Debo's a psychopath. Good for him if he can play off of pneumonia. But can the Niners get back on track here, or do the Cowboys cover on the road?
I'm not only taking Cowboys to cover. I like Cowboys to upset. This is one of my upset picks of the weekend is Dallas on the road plus 176?
176,
to win straight up. First of all, if Debo plays, that's actually wild. He literally left because he couldn't breathe.
Correct.
Whatever. But he's a different animal. But I look at this game and everyone's talking about, well, I guess they're talking about the Niners too, but I feel like there's so much made about the Cowboys, already sell stock, season's over, they've been terrible. And look, Dallas definitely has some concerns, don't get me wrong, but they're going on the road. And funny enough, they're better on the road this year. Contrary to last year, they're undefeated on the road, all 3 wins. And I do like to buy into the classic rivalry narrative. I know Niners have historically won this matchup. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't make a difference in this one. And ultimately, the Cowboys do have the pieces if they just get a little bit of momentum going. Jalen Tolbert, a guy I'd absolutely be targeting in the prop market in this game, even if you don't like Cowboys just straight up to win, which I do. I really do think this offense for San Fran is going to struggle. We're not only talking about those key pieces being out, but Brock Purdy hasn't really looked good. And that's concerning. And I know everyone likes to talk about him being just this game manager type. It's not about him being a game manager. It just feels like he's a little bit off rhythm. He's making kind of, some stupid mistakes. He's not connecting with his receivers, some underthrown passes, and that's going to have to change. Right now, they're just depending on Jordan Mason, who's also banged up. There is a lot of issues on injuries for San Francisco, a team that managed to stay healthy last year. We're seeing the opposite effect for this team. And I think Cowboys are in a spot where, No one's really backing them on the road in this game. They're injured, but they're not nearly as injured as San Francisco. And we're seeing the rise of Tolbert. We need CeeDee Lamb to actually play like a wide receiver one. Rico Dowdle is kind of their guy now in the running game. And this could be one of those high scoring, come down to the wire, Cowboys end up getting the upset.
Yeah. And I think that the issue the Niners have is that it's cluster injuries. Like one injury, fine. It's a situation where their top 3 receivers are all banged up because Juwan Jennings didn't practice Wednesday either with the hip injury that forced him to sit out in week number 8. Now, maybe he'll still be good to go. But like, that's a cluster injury. And that's always a concern from where you got those things pile up in the exact same place. And I know that there's like this negativity around the Cowboys right now, but both the Commanders and Eagles are underdogs in week number 8. And like, let's say they lose, Cowboys with a win to be a half game out in the NFC East, and they haven't played Washington yet. So like, there's still a lot to play for them this year. And there's a lot on the line for the Niners too, because like they're chasing down the Seahawks at this point in the NFC West. So like, there's a lot to play for both teams. But I think that the writing off of the Cowboys maybe is a bit too premature. I do have a Cowboys preseason ticket for them to win the NFC East. So I kind of hope it's premature. I don't feel good about it. Like I kind of hate the fact that I have it, but like, you know, if it happens to win, cool. But I think that like maybe we've written off the Cowboys a bit too fast here.
And that's typical of NFL fans, is it not? Everyone is very quick to write off the Cowboys. Like the Niners are well deservingly being written off 100%. Like, unfortunately, those clusters of injuries, as you mentioned, are really impacting the season for them. And for Dallas, look, it's not ideal situations, but ultimately they're still at a place in the season where it feels more realistic for things to get turned around. As you mentioned, in a division where it's like, are we really just betting on the Commanders and expecting a rookie quarterback to take them all the way? Well, the Eagles look to be a mess as well. So Cowboys could turn this thing around pretty quickly, and maybe we'll see a similar coaching job on defense with Mike Zimmer 2 weeks ago, like we did with the Steelers. And then either way, so I don't know. I could see it being a shootout, but I could also see it being like a low score gritty game. That's why I'll just focus on the upset. I won't look at the total.
All right. That money line that Megan mentioned is the Cowboys at plus 176 to knock off the Niners on Sunday Night Football. Any other bets you like across week number 8, Megan?
Yes, we are headed over to Jets Pats, Jim. And I made the mistake last week of betting the Patriots to upset against the Jags. And I'm not going to bet on the Patriots to upset in this game. What I will do is bet on player props that correlate if the Patriots do end up upsetting against the Jets. And we're looking at a Hunter Henry touchdown. Last I looked, it was like plus 330. Hunter Henry, he's been a little boom or bust, but last week in 92 yards, he's getting targeted a lot. The Jets have been terrible against tight ends the last 2 weeks. They've given up a touchdown. They've given up 150 yards to tight ends. This is a spot. Is it plus 360 now?
Yeah, it is.
Even better. Hunter Henry has an opportunity, I think, to go off here. And I know that you might not be thinking a lot of points for Patriots. So if you're kind of afraid to go with a touchdown bet in this game, I'd look at Drake May over his passing yard line. The Jets secondary is banged up, so it's not as good of a defense as we're used to seeing. Drake May might have been making a few mistakes in the last 2 games. However, he's averaged 260 yards over his first 2 games as an NFL quarterback. And I could see that maybe simmer down a little bit, but not all the way to 208. We could see something around 220, 230, and this would hit. So those are the 2 prop bets that I like in Patriots Jets. And yes, I could easily be convinced of a Patriots upset again.
Well, I already took them, so don't worry. I took the Patriots plus 7. The synergy is back. It never went nowhere, but the synergy is back. Yeah. And I did take the Patriots plus 7 here. I've got this game at 5.7 if I give no bump for Drake May, but I'm pretty sure he's worth like 1.6 points based on my numbers. So I've got it at 4.1. So I'm actually pretty far off market in this one. That's despite the fact I think the Patriots defense actually does kind of stink. Like Gerard Mayo may have had a point. I do think that that's kind of true, but I still think that's a big number in a game with such a low total when the Jets offense isn't necessarily like a juggernaut either. So I agree with you. I think the Patriots are kind of undervalued here. So we'll get your exposure via Hunter Henry touchdown plus 360. Drake May is over passing prop. I'll take the Patriots plus 7 minus 110. I personally took the money line, not necessarily a recommendation, but I just did take it as well. So we're aligned that in general, we're still buying the Patriots despite whatever that was that happened last week.
It's hard. And again, those international games, things get a bit weird. Drake May, it's like second start he's played in London. Like that's crazy. That's a lot of pressure. And the Jags needed that win more than the Patriots did. So it could be a spot to back New England. The only thing that scares me is that it feels like, but here's the thing. It feels like the Jets need to win. The Jets needed to win last week and they didn't.
Sure.
I mean, how many times can we keep saying it before it's like, no, we really need to win. But I'm with you on it. We're still buying in on Tank Dell and on the Patriots.
I can feel the Chad Pennington figurine and the DeBrickashaw Ferguson bobblehead behind me. Just they're shaking their heads in disgust.
Yeah, I don't know if it's this way or if it's this way, but they're doing something.
I agree. We'll go with the yes. We'll go with the yes for the bobblehead on DeBrickashaw on that one. Okay, so the Hunter Henry touchdown and Drake May prop is where Meghan is looking at there. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. As mentioned, back with you once again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern on this FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page with Austin Swain breaking down top player props for this week in the NFL. To stream along live there, subscribe to this new YouTube page. Leave us a thumbs up if you're watching right now, and we appreciate those of you tuning in as always. And don't forget to subscribe to the Covering the Spread podcast feed as well. Meghan, appreciate the time as always. Good luck to you in week 8. Enjoy the football. We'll talk to you once again soon.
Thank you, Jim. Happy week 8. Have a good one.
You can find Meghan on X at Meghan Payton 7. I am on X at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets for Thursday Night Football and across week 8 as well. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down some player props. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.